Clark County is a statutory or code county. It's been in effect since the Constitution was put into effect in 1889. And that provides for one specific type of county government structure with 3 elected county commissioners and then a number of ministerial elected offices as well: assessor, auditor, treasurer, clerk, sheriff, prosecuting attorney. We have about 40 some different governments in Clark County, but at the county government level we have 3 commissioner districts, and then each of those commissioner districts we have 1 county commissioner who represents the people in that district. In 1890, Clark County had a population of around 11,000 people, and then again we had the statutory form of government with 3 county commissioners, and then today we have a population of approximately 438,000 people, again continuing with 3 county commissioners. So the county commissioners have both legislative or policy-making responsibility as well as the executive administrative responsibilities. So they set policy for county government, they pass ordinances, they do all the land use planning issues, as well as being responsible for the administrative tasks of the county. So when it comes to building a bridge or paving a road or issuing a dog permit, animal license permit. There are 2 forms of county government in our state. One is the statutory or code county that we discussed earlier, and the second is the charter county or home rule county. And home rule county and charter county are 2 terms that are used synonymously. They mean pretty much the same thing. And we currently have 6 charter counties in this state. And so charter counties give the citizens of those counties some options, some flexibility as to how they can design their county government. Well, in my opinion, what started this home rule process here in Clark County is that Commissioner Milkey has been a long-time advocate of the home rule process, of electing 15 people to sit around and think about the form of government and are there opportunities to improve our form of government to better serve the long-term interests of our community. We then saw that he was able to persuade his fellow 2 commissioners to vote in favor of that. And so we had a unanimous vote by all 3 commissioners to elect 15 freeholders. We had 123 people file for those positions. A few people withdrew, so we now have 109 candidates. And then this November, on every voter's ballot, they're going to see 5 positions. So if you live in Commissioner District 1, 2, or 3, and everyone lives in one of those Commissioner Districts, on your ballot, you're going to see 5 positions, 5 different races, with the number of candidates for each of those races. And you as a voter will have the opportunity to cast your ballot for 1 person in each of those 5 different races. And after the freeholders are elected, they will meet. They will meet in public meetings. Those meetings will be, because they're public meetings, they are elected officials just like a commissioner is, just like a state legislator is, and they're subject to the open public meeting laws, just like every other elected official. So they will decide where they're going to meet, they're going to decide when they're going to meet, and they will decide what the agenda of each of those meetings are. And they will discuss the various options, the various features that they can include in a draft charter. And the freeholders will be trying to think about what is in the best long-term interests of our county in terms of the structure of their county government. And then if they do agree on that draft charter, it will be presented to voters for voters' consideration. And if a majority of voters approve that, then that charter will be enacted. Well, if we look at these other counties that have changed from statutory or code counties to charter counties, I think what you've seen is that the freeholders and the citizens there have been interested in creating a form of structure that created more transparency, more accountability, created more checks and balances in their county government. They have typically increased the number of commissioners or council members. They've changed electing them from the district as opposed to electing them countywide. They've, in those 4 counties, they've modeled their county government after the state model as well as a federal model with a separate branch of government, creating a check and balances, shared power between the legislative branch and the executive branch. So some counties don't have an elected county auditor. Some counties have combined the treasurer and the assessor. And then also whether or not those offices are partisan or nonpartisan. Another common element among these counties are the powers of initiative and referendum at the local level. And there's some details about how those initiative and referendum actually work, but they all have initiative and referendum powers at the county level. So the initiative gives citizens the opportunity, direct lawmaking authority. They can, if a number of citizens sign a petition, the question will be placed on the ballot, and then voters can say yay or nay to that question. The referendum allows voters the ability to pass judgment on either on a law that the legislature has passed, or the legislative body itself can refer questions out to the voters for their consideration. The question is whether or not the freeholders could create a separate branch of government. And they certainly could. In fact, the 4 charter counties that I referenced, Pierce, King, Snohomish, and Whatcom, all do have a separate branch of government where the executive administrative powers reside, and then the county council is responsible solely for legislative and policy-making authority. And in that separate branch of government where the administrative executive powers reside, that is headed up by an elected county executive. The plus is transparency and more open decision-making, more accountability. Maybe the con is that it can take longer to make decisions. And then, of course, it depends on how you structure it and how people are paid. But you could decide to pay everybody a whole lot of money, and you could increase the expenses, the overall cost of this. But you could also structure it in a way that the overall cost was no more than our current structure. And in the again, in each of these 4 counties that have that branch, that form of government in our state government, there are checks and balances between those branches of government. So the first one starts with the most powerful one, which is setting the budget. And in government, budget is everything. Typically, the county executive proposes the budget, but the county council approves the budget. Another check and balance in the system is that the county council passes ordinances. The county executive can either accept those ordinances or can veto the ordinances. And then if it's vetoed, it's subject to a supermajority override of that veto. When the county executive goes to hire a department head, that hiring is subject to the approval or the rejection by the county council. And then finally, the county council has subpoena powers. They can force any county employee to come before them and provide evidence and testimony. So those checks and balances are options that the freeholders can consider to include in the charter for Clark County.
I think that in our community, there's been this sense of division. Like it seems like there's, this group against this group and, that group against this group, that I feel like I can really come into a meeting and say, hey, I'm going to listen and I'm truly going to be balanced.
What I would like to see is I would like to assure that if 5 commissioners are selected, that the pay truly is part-time for part-time work.
Well, one of the most important things I think that I can do as a freeholder is listen and represent the will of the voters from the 2nd Commissioner District.
I ran for freeholder years ago in 1982. I lost that election, but I didn't have any preconceived ideas then, and I really don't have any preconceived ideas now.
Ultimately, they've got to put something together that represents the viewpoints of the voters, because that's really why you get elected as an official, is to represent the voters, not personal agendas.
There were previous attempts in Clark County regarding freeholders in the charter county. In 1982 and 1987, there was a question on the ballot as to whether or not we should elect freeholders. Not the positions themselves, but simply the question of whether or not we should elect freeholders. And those questions failed and freeholders were not elected, and so the whole effort just died right there. In 2000, by the Commissioner's direct resolution, on the ballot there was the opportunity to elect 21 people as freeholders. Why wasn't the charter approved in 2002? Many people, myself included, think that putting 4 questions in front of the voters was confusing. And with only 187 votes being the difference between passing and failing that charter, will be interesting to see if the freeholders are able to agree on a form of government for Clark County, and it will be interesting to see what voters in 2014 or 15 think. In 2013, with 123 people filing and then 109 people on the ballot, there was a lot of interest in making a change. What citizens expect from their government is transparency and accountability. And the way you get transparency and accountability in government is through structure. Greater structure, greater separation of powers, shared powers between different branches of government, as we see in our state level or federal level, again, those 4 charter counties, does result in more process. And more process can result in it taking longer to take action. And that's really the trade-off you make for greater transparency and greater accountability. So Clark County voters have an amazing opportunity. It's maybe not once in a lifetime, but pretty darn close. We get the opportunity to help define what our county government could look like for the next 50 or 100 years. We get the opportunity to think about what we believe will be in our best interest for the next 50, 100, 200 years. And the people who get elected freeholders are going to have a big say in that. Ultimately it comes back to the voters, but right now we have an opportunity to elect people who we think will work for the best long-term interests of our county. And so I hope that everyone out there will do a little work, do a lot of work, do some research, ask some people, and find out what the views are of these freeholders. You know, what is a charter county? What are the options for freeholders? So this is a fabulous program you're putting on here tonight, and I hope that people will not only watch this and think about it, but look elsewhere for information. Again, the clarkvotes.org, we have some good information there, and I'd be happy to provide try to find any more information that anybody wants. Just give me a call or shoot me an email.